Chapter 221, Refusal to face the Yin demons had been released into the surroundings so no movements around the storefront would escape Han Shao-O's notice. Even if the other was a dark Grand Magus, it would be impossible for him to move about within Han Shao-O's territory with no one the wiser. When Edwin and Belinda had landed on the tree in the distance, Han Shao had already used the Yin demons to mark their movement, which had led to him calling them out without hesitation. Even if Han Shao had been alone in the shop, the formation in the courtyard would allow him to be completely fearless in front of Edwin, let alone the presence of Gilbert and Trunks by his side. Edwin and Belinda were obviously stunned by Han Shao-O's frightening perception. Dumbfoundedness filled Edwin's face as he revealed himself through the thick cropping of branches, looking at Han Shao in the yard. He called out, "How did you discover me?" "Nothing is impossible," Han Shao shouted back coldly. He then shot a look to the two by his side, revealing a calm smile. He pointed elegantly at a few of the empty seats in the yard and threw his head back to say, "Since you two have the mind to, why don't you come over for a chat? I don't feel any killing intent from you, so it doesn't appear that you're here to kill me this time." Having reached the bloodlust realm, Han Shao now had a keen sensitivity to the natural killing intent that would emanate from experts, perhaps also a function of his own increased desire for blood. Up in the tree, Edwin and Belinda were casting curious and cautious looks into the yard. Their expressions were calm with no hint of killing intent. Edwin was even more astonished after Han Shao's words. His look at Han Shao was full of surprise and shock. He kept trying to read something from his face. Edwin revealed a wry smile after a while and shook his head. "I'm here with sincerity this time, but I can't see if you harbor an intention to kill me or not. Your yard is too dangerous, so I won't come down for now. Otherwise I may die thanks to this group of young but frightening children." He brought Belinda with him when landing softly on the shop roof, seemingly very concerned about the strangeness within the yard. The two of them didn't dare draw near the courtyard and seemed to be on their guard against any kind of sudden ambush. To be honest, Han Shao did indeed wish that the two of them would land in the courtyard. He could then use the formation as well as Gilbert and Trunks' strength to kill them and save himself the effort of always being on his guard against an ambush from Edwin. It was a pity that Edwin was a sly old fox and wouldn't easily fall into his trap. Edwin had already investigated the happenings in the shop of the previous night and deeply understood that this shop was fully capable of swallowing people. This was why he didn't dare land inside. Since his plans had failed, Han Shao didn't continue his good attitude towards them. His face dark, he said impatiently, "If you're not here to kill me, are you here to cooperate against Ferguson? He's a heavyweight in the Church of Light and is now diametrically opposed to you. You're his true target." "You're wrong. Perhaps you don't even know yourself, but you've become the hated enemy of the Church of Light. They'll spare no cost to make you disappear from this world now." Edwin looked deeply at Han Shao and said lowly, "Oh, is that so? Ferguson doesn't represent the entire Church of Light. I think my grudge with Florida isn't so deep as to make the entire Church of Light move against me. You're just saying frightening things to raise an alarm," Han Shao mocked. Looking at Han Shao with a pitying expression, Edwin said slowly, "Your miraculous performance last night made the Church of Light realize your terrifying aspects. Your little skeleton being unafraid of the radiance of light created even more trouble for you. Ferguson will make a move against you, even if not for his grandson Florida now, because your existence strongly threatens the Church of Light." Han Shao fell silent after these words. He wasn't stupid, but had simply never thought about this matter seriously before. When Edwin reminded him of this, Han Shao recalled that the last couple of times necromancy magic had fallen, the Church of Light had seemed to play an important role every time. Light magic had a fatal effect on the dark creatures of necromancy magic. When necromancy magic was at its peak, hordes and packs of dark creatures had ravaged the lands. The Church of Light had then sent out large numbers of believers to use the simplest of light magic to deliver a devastating blow by bathing the dark creatures in light magic. Han Shao thought carefully and quickly realized the truth in Edwin's words. He'd refined the little skeleton and zombies from his secret arts, making them impervious to light magic attacks. This was an intolerable truth to the Church of Light. It looked like he'd unwittingly become embroiled in enormous trouble. When Edwin saw Han Shao remain silent, his brows deeply knitted together and his face becoming darker power and darker. Edwin understood that Han Shao had realized how serious things were. He smiled faintly and reached out a finger to point at Han Shao. He spoke with an extremely bewitching voice. I'm sure you know how influential the Church of Light is in the profound continent. Apart from the Calamity Church continuously fighting against them, there are very few powers that can withstand them. Don't hesitate. As long as you join our Calamity Church, we can forget all our previous grudges. Our necromancer's study of dark creatures will reach unparalleled levels as soon as you join. Large armies of dark creatures will then raise and loot all the Church of Light strongholds, making everyone and everything fall under our rule. And you will become the most respected person in the Calamity Church. You can have anything you want. Wealth, women and power will all be within your grasp. What a wondrous thing. I'm sure that with your intelligence you will be able to imagine the glorious future ahead. Honored Master, he makes a lot of sense. Agree. Gilbert became incredibly excited when he heard about wealth and women. Shut up. Han Shao glared fiercely at Gilbert and then looked back at Edwin. My apologies, although your suggestion is tantalizing, I don't think I can agree. The Calamity Church has an awful reputation. I don't want to become a public enemy. The Calamity Church was a power that everyone hated on the continent. This church hid in the shadows and was a force that no country could ignore. They possessed a fervent faith to destroy and a stubborn desire that was hard to understand. They were at odds with all kingdoms and religions on the continent. If he did join such a church, Han Shao would become the enemy of all the nations. This was something he was absolutely unwilling to see. Not to mention that it was very difficult to use magic cultivation methods to refine dark creatures. He would need to expend an enormous amount of resources and manpower. He wasn't sure if he could mass produce light magic resistant dark creatures either. Even if he could, according to the Calamity Church's teachings and canon of destroying all the continent would then be enveloped in a shroud of blood and fire and ultimately become a wasteland. This was also something that Han Shao didn't wish to see. Han Shao's unhesitating and resolute refusal perplexed Edwin. He planned on trying to further convince Han Shao, but a beam of black light flashed through the air from afar and shot towards Edwin on the roof. You should all die. I'm going to get revenge for Big Sister Elaine today. Like a furious tigress, an enraged Emily shattered the air as she sped towards Edwin, staff in hand and hair dancing wildly. Casting a disdainful look at her, Edwin raised his hand and blocked all attacks with a wall of darkness. He then looked at Han Shao and smiled slightly. Don't be in such a hurry to decline. I think you might change your decision when the Church of Light makes their move. Edwin didn't continue to tarry after he finished speaking, vanishing without a trace with Belinda in the blink of an eye. Edwin was a grand magus. If he wanted to leave through the air, no one there was capable of hindering him. Emily and Phoebe both refrained from foolish pursuit as they landed in the courtyard. What's going on? Emily looked at Han Shao and asked. He sighed softly with a wry smile. I'm in big trouble. What's wrong? What kind of trouble could have given you a headache? Emily had been with Han Shao for so long, but she'd never truly seen him at a loss. When Han Shao had described all that had happened, the two girls were also greatly shocked. They immediately understood the importance of the matter and frowned, looks of anxiety on their faces as no solutions seemed to present themselves. The Church of Light was different from the Calamity Church. They were the most influential religious organization on the profound continent and had a large network amongst the populace. There were a large number of believers worshipping the Church of Light in any country, and their combined influence was stronger than any small kingdom. If all of the Church of Light believers are like Ferguson, then I don't think much of this church either. Han Shao sneered dismissively in the end. No, there are many who are kind and just in the Church of Light. At least those I know have characters worthy of admiration. Ferguson isn't a bad sort either. He just spoils his grandson Florida too much. He often ends up wiping Florida's butt after some willful action or another. This is the reason for the slow shift in his character. There are many necromancers in the entire continent apart from the Calamity Church. I think the Church of Light won't try to kill you as long as you don't join the Calamity Church. Not all believers of light are that unreasonable. Emily thought for a moment and comforted Han Shao. It's difficult to say. This matter is indeed a bit thorny. But if the Church of Light wants to make a move against me for no reason, I won't be merciful either. No matter what excuse they have, I'll kill someone first if they try to kill me. Han Shao thought for a moment and said resolutely, Master, no matter what you do, your loyal servant Gilbert will serve you faithfully. Gilbert didn't miss an opportunity to fawn on Han Shao. Trunks, the Soul Destroyer mercenary band will make all actions in your name in the future. Don't tell anyone the relationship between the mercenary band and me. Otherwise I'm afraid that with my identity it would bring unnecessary trouble to the band. Han Shao thought for a moment and suddenly said to Trunks, Brian, do you think I'm afraid of some trouble? Trunks was a bit unhappy and said coldly. Shaking his head, Han Shao responded, don't think random thoughts. The mercenary band is mine, but don't publicize that for now. You can announce that after I take care of this Church of Light matter. You have to know that our mercenary band has just started at this moment and I want to expand more quickly as well, so I can't let this matter affect it at this time. Trunks' expression returned to normal after Han Shao's explanation. He smiled faintly and nodded. You're the chief, I'll do what you say. That's the rule of the mercenary band. What were you two doing today? Why weren't you in the shop during the day? Han Shao looked askance at Emily and Phoebe, having settled Trunks. I brokered an enormous deal and disposed of everything you gave me. We now have 70,000 gold coins. Apart from those needed to form the mercenary band, I'm temporarily holding on to the rest for you, Phoebe said. Younger sister Cecilia, one of the 3 heavyweights in charge of all dark mantle matters outside of the Empire, suddenly arrived in the valley today. I immediately went to meet her and was delayed because we decided to catch up for a while. Emily looked at Han Shao and explained. She paused and smiled faintly. Because I talked about my cooperation with you, she was very curious about you. Chapter 222, Making a move myself hurts the body. Cecilia was one of the 3 heavyweights in the Dark Mantle, ascending to her position at a young age. She was legendary within the Dark Mantle and was greatly admired by all members. She had been traveling to various kingdoms all this time in charge of foreign policy matters. She rarely made a trip back to the capital if there was nothing urgent. As a central location between 3 countries, the Valley of Sunshine was a very special existence. That Cecilia was here meant that she must have an important mission, otherwise she wouldn't have dithered here. Han Shao didn't have many designs on this legendary woman, even if she was rumored to be very tempting. He was only a bit surprised when he heard Emily say that she was interested in him and didn't say much else. Brian, I need to talk to you alone. Come find me later. Phoebe stretched and walked toward her own room, murmuring, what a long day, let's take a bubble bath and relax first. When Trunks and Gilbert saw Phoebe leave, they immediately started making faces at Han Shao. Emily curled her lip and gave a very soft low snort. She was likely a bit angry. Trunks, make a list of what weapons our mercenaries will use. I'll ask the dwarves to forge them soon. Han Shao said to Trunks as he suddenly remembered. The dwarves live in a very mysterious place. How did you find them? Trunks was quite shocked as he looked at Han Shao with surprise. Thanks to some fortuitous occurrences, I have a good relationship with a dwarf village and can ask them to forge some weapons for me. I can bring this with Phoebe later. She can purchase some rare metals for me so that the dwarves can forge even sharper weapons. I see. Alright, I'll think about it tonight and then give you a list tomorrow. Looking up at the sky, Han Shao said, amidst getting late, everyone should get some rest. Honored Master, Miss Phoebe has just returned to her room and hasn't even started filling the tub with water yet. Aren't you a little anxious? Gilbert sniggered lewdly, his voice laced with a double meaning. Gilbert, if you really are getting blue balls, I can give you some gold coins so you can go to those alleyways and take care of your issues. Han Shao looked sideways at Gilbert and suggested. Trunks guffawed and clutched his stomach, gasping between laughs. He already tried today, but even though he was willing to spend a large amount of money, all of the girls in the valley think that he's an incredible pervert due to his previous actions, so no one dares serve him. When he heard that Gilbert really had attempted to go whoring but hadn't been able to find anyone willing to serve him, Han Shao couldn't help but laugh heartily. A little lewd dragon is a little lewd dragon, alright. It's too bad he can't be lewd even when he spends money. You're truly sad. Gilbert's look of dejection turned to a look of anger, complaining loudly, it's all because that you wanted me to collect virgin's blood that I can't get any girls. Now you even laugh at me. I feel so shunned. How low, so disgusting. Emily rolled her eyes eyes at Gilbert with extreme disdain. She snorted coldly and walked off to her own room. Hey, are you getting something wrong here? Master told me to collect it. Why aren't you yelling at him? Gilbert cried out loudly, aggrieved when he saw Emily scorn him so much. Alright, if you really can't hold it and you can fly to a farther city to take care of your needs. I know it's the personality of you dark dragons. Master is willing to give you gold for whoring, don't worry. Han Sha-o laughed oddly and ignored Gilbert, heading for Emily's room. Although Han Sha-o and Phoebe were in a relationship in name, the two of them had yet to develop to that point. Han Sha-o could only look for Emily when he had to take care of some bodily needs. Didn't Miss Phoebe tell him to go visit her? Why did he go visit Madame Emily instead? Is he walking to the wrong place? Gilbert looked at Trunks and spoke in incomprehension. Rubbing his chin, Trunks looked as Han Sha-o entered Phoebe's room, a thoughtful expression on his face. He smiled. Stop poking your nose into your master's affairs. You should uphold the principle of talk less, do more. After Han Sha-o had entered Emily's room, he directed one of the three young demons surveilling the shop to take up guard outside her room. He smiled cheekily and walked further in, laughing softly. Alright, don't be mad. Go find your little Phoebe, Emily said huffily as she glared at Han Sha-o. Hey, I'd need to find my little Emily first. Phoebe can wait. Han Sha-o walked to Emily, smiling as he didn't wait for her to resist. He held her in his arms and his hands roved over her body, invading her luscious curves. When Emily was panting heavily, her emotions took over as she began voluntarily coordinate with Han Sha-o's actions. The two quickly shed their clothes and entangled themselves with each other with an air of familiarity. When Emily's body had softened into a ball of cotton candy, exhausted after Han Sha-o's multiple vigorous charges, the bit of ire left in her heart from earlier quickly vanished without a trace. Her skin was flushed red as she curled lazily in Han Sha-o's embrace. Her slender fingers tapped lightly on Han Sha-o's chest as she murmured lowly, I know I shouldn't be mad, but sometimes I can't help myself. Running his large hand over Emily's smooth back, Han Sha-o said softly, it only means that you care about me. You don't need to explain. It'd be even more odd if you weren't mad. Han Sha-o was spooning Emily and murmuring sweet nothings to her, completely forgetting about the passage of time. He'd forgotten what Phoebe had said before. But in the other room, Phoebe had waited a long time after she'd showered and changed. She began to grow impatient when Han Sha-o took his sweet time coming. She put on her clothes and adjusted them, leaving her room and crossing the yard to walk toward Han Sha-o's room. She knocked. Brian, can I come in? Han Sha-o had discovered her movements when Phoebe had pushed open her own door. When he saw Phoebe make a beeline for his room, he hastily started putting his clothes on. Damn it, I forgot what Phoebe said just now. Deathly afraid of being caught in bed, Emily also had a panic-stricken expression on her face as she hastily put her clothes back on and carelessly pulled her hair up into a bun. She urged Han Sha-o on, you should hurry on back. Things will be bad if she discovers this. Nodding, Han Sha-o walked to a window in the back and jumped out, approaching his own room from the back wall. He then used his cultivation skills to open his window and flipped inside, casting a look over his appearance in the window and opening the door with an awkward expression. Why did it take you so long to open the door? I told you to come find me just now. Why didn't you come? Phoebe pouted at Han Sha-o and asked suspiciously when she saw that his pants were loose. What were you doing just now? How come you haven't zipped up your pants? Han Sha-o's expression was a bit panicked because he felt guilty. Inspiration struck and he hurriedly responded, no, nothing. I was going to the bathroom. I see. Phoebe giggled and replied understandingly. Smiling, she walked toward Han Sha-o and looked coquettishly at him. You should still pull up your pants properly before opening the door. Look at you now, gosh. Contrary to Han Sha-o's expectations, Phoebe stooped down with a faint smile as she spoke and reached out to pull up his pants. However, a strong odd smell hit her nose from his pants when she did so, assaulting her nose and mouth. This strange smell made her immediately cover her nose and cry out, what is this? Why does it smell so weird? She looked closely at his pants as she spoke and noticed some white spots on the fabric of his thighs. It looked like some liquid had just dried. Her stunning cheeks suddenly burned hot as she abruptly realized what those spots were. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in, standing there dumbfounded as she froze. Shit. Damn, I'm dead now. I forgot to clean myself just now. The only other woman in the store is Emily. It looks like the gig's up. Phoebe's Phoebe's definitely going to throw a tantrum. Han Sha-oh was apprehensive when his thoughts spun wildly. Uh, um, Things aren't as you think, Han Sha-oh frantically explained as he hurriedly pulled his pants up, unable to conceal the panic in his expression. Phoebe stood up with a lowered head as her cheeks and neck burned, not daring to look at Han Sha-oh. She turned and headed back outside, but suddenly found her voice and her sense of humor as she reached the doorway and murmured in an exceedingly low voice, "Brian, it's been tough on you. I'm your girlfriend, but you still have to take care of such things yourself. I'm just not ready yet. Give me some more time. Don't do this in the future. I've heard people say that it really harms the body to do this to yourself." Phoebe delivered these words with a reddened expression as Han Sha-oh watched dumbfounded. She then left like she was fleeing and rather seemed more ill at ease than Han Sha-oh. Hey, things aren't as you imagined. Han Sha-oh didn't know whether or laugh or cry as he watched Phoebe's retreating back. The next day morning, Phoebe, Emily and Han Sha-oh all had on very awkward expressions in the morning. No one knew what to say, particularly Han Sha-oh. He'd been misunderstood by Phoebe but had no way of explaining himself. Explaining would land him in more trouble instead. Trunks and Gilbert looked ambiguously at all of them, especially Gilbert. He kept chuckling under his breath and said to Han Sha-oh, "Honored master, did you have a wonderful night?" "Aha, I think it must have been one worthy of dreaming about again and again." "Shut up." Han Sha-oh flew into a rage and glared fiercely at Gilbert. "Brian, here's a list of weapons. If the dwarves can forge these, it'll definitely greatly increase our men's fighting abilities and passion." Trunks handed over a scrawled list of weapons. "I still have some matters to take care of. I'll be going now." Emily was alright, but she still felt a bit shy after the previous night's events and so was the first to leave. "Am you also going to leave too?" Phoebe also expressed her intentions when she saw Emily leave. "Phoebe, wait." Han Sha-oh opened his mouth. Phoebe's face suddenly flushed hotly as she didn't quite dare meet Han Sha-oh's eyes. She only flicked a shy glance at Han Sha-oh. "What is it?" The frosty Miss Phoebe can be so shy as well. It looks like what happened last night altered even Miss Phoebe's personality. Gilbert finally confirmed that something had happened between Han Sha-oh and Phoebe last night. "Lou Dragon, don't think everyone is as shameless and perverted as you. I'll stab you with my sword if you keep spewing nonsense." Phoebe was also enraged as she rolled her eyes fiercely at Gilbert, threatening him with the icy look on her face. "I need all of these things, buy them for me." Han Sha-oh took out a list and handed it over to Phoebe, asking her to obtain the written items. Taking Han Sha-oh's list, Phoebe ascended softly and didn't say anything else before quickly leaving the shop. Not long after she left, Han Sha-oh was discussing matters of the valley with Gilbert and Trunks when he noticed through the demons that Odysseus and his crew was looking around a bit cautiously at the surroundings. They were standing in front of the door, not having daring to enter. It seemed like everyone in the Valley of Sunshine had heard of this storefront's infamous reputation. Odysseus and them were no exception, as they adopted an exceedingly cautious attitude due to its reputation of a curse. "They're here." Han Sha-oh smiled faintly and stood up to open the door. Chapter 223, Invitation. Long time no see. Han Sha-oh stood outside the door and greeted Odysseus' group with a half smile. All six of them cheered when they saw Han Sha-oh appear, their faces brimming with genuine joy. Odysseus and Gordon even barreled towards Han Sha-oh to hug him. "It really is you. What are you doing here?" The touchy-feely Gordon looked at Han Sha-oh with surprise after he let go. Hey, come on in. It's not as frightening as you think. It's very safe here." Han Sha-oh moved aside and gestured for them to come inside. The six had been rather apprehensive about this place before they had confirmed that Han Sha-oh was inside. After hearing his words, they stopped dithering and strode in, making for the center of the yard. Odysseus' crew was made of 3 warriors, 2 mages and 1 archer. Odysseus was a senior swordsman, Gordon and Angelo journeyman swordsman, Aphrodite a water adept mage, Bard a thunder journeyman mage, and Nia a female elven archer. After their last foray into the dark forest, not only had they gained incredible treasures, but their strength had reached new heights. From their badges, Han Sha-oh could tell that Gordon had advanced to senior swordsman and Bard to adept mage. "Brian, this place is Valley of Sunshine's famous cursed shop. I've heard people mention the legends of this place the last time we were here. There's a warning that no one should enter this shop. How come you're living here?" Gordon was a straight shooter, completely unable to hide hide his thoughts. He looked around the yard when he entered the shop and asked Han Shao as soon as he'd sat down. Legends aren't necessarily real, and those curses could be man-made as well. We've been here for so long and haven't run into any danger. Han Shao didn't explain the bloodwater demons to them. How've you been? As the captain Odysseus was dependable and upright. He looked at Han Shao and smiled in greeting. Not too bad. What have you encountered since leaving the dark forest? Gordon and Bard's strength have greatly increased. Not bad at all, Han Shao said. We went to Zajoski City after parting ways with you and sold what we'd gained in the dark forest. We obtained a sum of money and upgraded our equipment, as well as getting Bard a staff that enhanced his strength. After that, Gordon and Bard reported to their promotion exams since they felt they were ready. After passing the exams, we took some protection missions and arrived near the Valley of Sunshine. We entered the valley this time because we were protecting a merchant caravan. Odysseus smiled slightly and slowly went over all that had happened since they'd parted ways. Flicking a glance at Trunks, Han Shao thought for a moment and looked at Odysseus. We're friends here, so I'll speak candidly. Trunks and I have formed a mercenary band and there's only a few members right now. I would love it if you join so we can increase the size of the band. Odysseus and the others were all taken by surprise by these words. They looked at each other at a loss of how to respond. Snapping his attention back after being dazed, Odysseus looked at Han Shao and said, Brian, you're not kidding, are you? Why did you think of forming a mercenary band? You've always been a lone ranger and you don't seem the sort who'd want to form a mercenary band. That's very true, but we've already registered the name. I think if the band is run well, the future will be quite bright. Would you guys be interested in joining? Han Shao smiled at Odysseus and asked him with great sincerity, just what's going on? Can you tell me about things? Odysseus seemed interested but knew that he couldn't be hasty and questioned Han Shao closely. Han Shao went over the origin and details of the Soul Destroyer mercenary band. He didn't purposefully conceal the points about Trunks' hatred or Han Shao's recent run-ins with Florida. The other five's expression noticeably shifted after Han Shao had finished, having obviously not anticipated that so much it would happen with Han Shao and Trunks in the Valley of Sunshine in such a short amount of time. They were all very excited and itching to sign up. I think I need to discuss this in great detail with them before giving you an answer. As the captain, Odysseus naturally needed to ask the other five for their opinions and thus couldn't give a response on the spot. Nodding, Han Shao smiled. I understand, please take a few days to think about it. The six and Han Shao fell into talking about the fun things in the dark forest. The six didn't leave until it was almost noon. Trunks would occasionally toss in a word or two, but Gilbert felt a bit bored sitting there. His shifty eyes kept checking out Aphrodite and Nia. He only stopped pouting when Han Shao glared at him a few times. Let's go out for a walk, Han Shao said to Trunks and Gilbert after the six had left. Where are we going? Trunks was a bit confused and asked. The situation in the Valley of Sunshine is rather complex right now. Our original target was Florida, but now that Ferguson's joined the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band, I think we need to discuss his arrival with Lorden. We can also obtain more information from Lorden to decide our next course of action, Han Shao said calmly. This time the group made their way easily to the Cairo mercenary band without meeting any obstacles. However, before they'd made it past the enormous square, they heard an earth-shattering explosion from the depths of the Cairo mercenary band. When Han Shao and the others rushed over, they found that a building had toppled over, black smoke spilling out of it. Several charred, bloody corpses were scattered around the building. Standing in the center, the bald Lorden was similar to an infuriated beast, seemingly a step away from going berserk and emanating an exceedingly dangerous aura as he roared at his men. Harris was standing not too far from the chaos with an equally darkened expression. He seemed to be in an awful mood and wasn't as polite as usual when he saw Han Shao and the others walk over. He looked angrily and guiltily at the corpses on the ground and seemed to be blaming himself. It looks like we haven't come at the right time. Han Shao pursed his lips after walking up, restraining the anger in his heart. Lorden sucked in a few deep breaths and turned his head to Harris. Bury these brothers well. I'm going to find out who did this and rip him apart. Harris didn't say much as he nodded his head painfully, then started directing the mercenaries who were converging on all sides. They lifted the bodies carefully and started cleaning up the premises. Come with me. Lorden had a black face and snorted softly walking towards the largest building. It was obvious that the three had chanced upon the aftermath of an ambush on the Cairo mercenary band. They took a close look around but discovered no traces of any enemies and so had no idea what was going on. When Lorden entered his own house, he waved his hands randomly around to indicate for them to find a stone stool. He spoke with a darkened face. The enemy wants to kill me. The room that exploded was where I usually take care of the daily matters of the Cairo mercenary band. I usually go there at noon. However, I was delayed by some matters today. When I was 10 meters from the building entrance, I felt a strong magical pulse radiate outwards, with the explosion happening immediately. It looks like a magical device was set up beforehand, otherwise it wouldn't have exploded so timely. I almost died inside. There are certainly those who belong to other factions in your mercenary band. This wouldn't have happened otherwise. In addition, when I was fighting Florida in front of the gates to the Valley of Sunshine last time, the Rainbow Sickles shouldn't have gotten there so quickly to save Florida. I started suspecting something then, and today it seems like my suspicions were warranted. Han Shao thought for a moment and responded, "That's for certain. If I can arrange my men to infiltrate other factions, then the others can certainly do so as well. It was just too dangerous this time. I almost died. I wonder which faction did this." Lorden growled with a darkened face. Seeing that Lorden had his own thoughts, Han Shao said no more. Although Lorden seemed all bronze and no brain, his mind was actually quite calculative. No wonder he could replace the previous Rainbow Sickle mercenary band to be the most powerful in the valley. Florida's grandfather Ferguson, the Light Grand Magus of the Church of Light, has arrived. Florida has also been transferred to another place, and I can't find an appropriate time to make a move against him. I've come to find you this time to figure out where Florida has been moved to. Since you have men in the Rainbow Sickles, I think you might know this info. If I don't know where Florida is, then I have no way to find the most appropriate timing to strike. I'll need you to tell me where he is. Han Shao thought for a moment and told Lorden, "I already know what happened last night, but since that sly old fox Ferguson has arrived, I think it'd be rather unrealistic to assassinate him now. After your attacks last night, Florida is certainly even more well protected now. Even if you know where Florida currently is, you won't have the chance to make a move." Lorden's expression had completely returned to normal now. Han Shao understood Lorden's words, but now that his three yin demons had formed and he had an Earth Elite zombie at his beck and call, Han Shao had full reason to believe that he would still have a chance to succeed after he knew where Florida was, no matter how heavily guarded he was. "I understand everything you've said, but I still hope you can tell me where Florida is." Han Shao laughed confidently. It was obvious that Lorden felt that Han Shao was overreaching himself. Although he understood Han Shao's strength was uncommon, he felt that even if Han Shao leveraged the power of the Cairo mercenary band, he still wouldn't have much of a chance to kill Florida. "Alright, I'll keep an eye out and send someone to notify you if I have news of Florida." Lorden's voice had grown cold as an impatient expression began to appear on his face. Han Shao knew there wasn't much to discuss beyond that and nodded, leaving with Trunks and Gilbert. "What the hell? We're doing him a favor and his attitude is so vicious." Gilbert started complaining loudly as soon as they left Cairo mercenary band's territory. "If you were almost blown to pieces, I think your attitude would be worse than his." It looks like Lorden was truly frightened today. Trunks looked at Gilbert and smiled. Lorden was indeed in a bad mood today. "I wonder if he'll be unable to control himself and make a move shortly." Han Shao chuckled and paused. "It looks like chaos is growing in the Valley of Sunshine. I think we should change our plans. I've got a better idea now." Chapter 224, Counter-assassination. "What should we do?" Trunks asked. "The depths of the Valley of Sunshine are too murky and our power is too weak. We don't have the ability to fight against any side. No matter what the final result is, control of the valley won't fall to us. In the end, our mercenary band is too weak. As such, it's not a wise move for us to become involved at this time. For now, we can set aside our feud with Florida. When they're injured and bleeding from fighting each other, we can take advantage of that to recruit men to expand expand our power. The most important thing is to grow our strength and not become involved with them. The shopfront that I need is rumored to be an unlucky place. No matter who's in control of the valley, they won't know how to use it, so it'll remain empty with no one taking up precedence. I'll be able to obtain it sooner or later. There's no need for us to be confined to one place because of it. Not to mention that Lorden isn't a kind sort. Our security is far from guaranteed during our stay in the valley. If Lorden loses his temper one day, then we might turn into enemies. At that time it would be difficult for us to leave the valley. Han Shao continued calmly after careful consideration. You mean that we should temporarily leave the Valley of Sunshine? Han Shao's comments had been long, but to distill it down in a simple manner, he was advocating that they take a seat on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. After some thought, Trunks was able to grasp his intention. We'll leave the Valley of Sunshine, but not necessarily its sphere of influence. We can imitate the 3 other factions and expand our influence to the outskirts of the valley. With the gold and your connections, you can make use of this time to recruit more mercenaries. We can slowly increase our strength when they're busy fighting each other. In addition, I need to leave for a while as well. If I remain here and the Church of Light discovers me, I'll bring unnecessary trouble to the mercenary band. I can make use of this opportunity to ask the dwarves in the dark forest to forge the weapons you need. I'll pay the forest trolls a visit as well to see if I can get anything out of them. Han Shao's mind was quite nimble as he quickly and calmly made plans. When Han Shao had finished, Trunks smiled and nodded. There are a few more months until the fight for control of the Valley of Sunshine ends. Now that we have enough gold for our base, I can make use of this time to attract more experts to join. Perhaps they'll be of some use in critical moments. Yep, let's go and discuss things with Emily. We should leave earlier rather than later. Han Shao looked at the sky and started thinking about what to do when they leave the valley. As they made their way back, the streets were bustling. All sorts of bizarre and exotic wares were on display by merchants from various kingdoms, catching the eyes of passers-by. From stockily built orcs wearing thick furs to beautiful elves with pointed ears, all sorts of races were looking at the items on the streets, trying to identify where their profits would come from. Han Shao was moving through the crowd when a sudden sense of danger rose in his heart. It was as if enemies from the shadows had locked onto him with killing intent, planning on giving him a lethal blow. Having reached the bloodlust realm, Han Shao had a frightening sensitivity towards other people's killing intent towards him. Even though he was on the crowded and bustling streets, he could still clearly feel that concealed burst of killing intent. It was really quite incredible. His thoughts moved as he sent the 3 yin demons flying out soundlessly, gusts of air drifting through the void, slowly dispersing and moving into the blind spots around Han Shao, probing for the origin of that killing intent. Thanks to the yin demons, Han Shao could clearly see all around him within several meters. He quickly sifted through the people around him, trying to identify the source of the danger. On the blind spots to the left of a shopfront, a flawless, exquisite face came into view. Like the edge of a blade, the female elven archer Maxine's eyes held a cold gleam. She was looking sharply at him and holding a strangely designed bow in her left hand. She seemed to be waiting for the prime opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Next to her stood Thunder Mage Asa. His face was equally ruthless as he gripped a magic staff in his right hand. He seemed to be ready to make a move at any time. However, in this crowded and busy street, Han Shao's group was surrounded by merchants of all nationalities. Conducting an assassination in such an area needed an exquisite, near-perfect grasp of timing, or it would be impossible to succeed. A cold smile suddenly appearing on his face, Han Shao continued walking forward without a hitch. The 3 yin demons kept an eye on Maxine and Asa's movements as he considered how to handle their plans. He suddenly dashed around a corner on the streets. Trunks and Gilbert also vanished without a trace. Maxine and Asa had seen the 3 walk forward but suddenly disappear around a corner. Slightly surprised, they looked at each other. Their hidden bodies couldn't help but join the crowds as they tried to take a look at what had happened around the corner. "Where are they?" Asa scanned the corner when they arrived and asked with a slight frown when he didn't find them. At that moment the streets reverberated with a low howl. A jet black beam of light screamed through the air as it twisted through the crowd. A pair of glistening fangs at the head of what looked like a gigantic snake winding through the air came to bite down on the 2. The sudden change completely wrecked their plans. Maxine's thin eyes narrowed into a slit as the demon slayer red shot towards her chest. She dashed upwards towards the roof and fled into the distance without a second thought. Behind Maxine, a ghastly wail tore its way out of ASA's mouth. The cry galvanized the crowd engulfing the street in chaos as everyone ducked and sprinted for safety, wanting to flee before the unknown danger arrived. The mercenaries who were following the merchants and in charge of their safety immediately surrounded their employers before identifying what had gone on in the surroundings. Thunder Mage ASA's right hand, the one clutching the magic staff, had been chopped off because of Maxine's departure. The severed stump spewed blood everywhere. The Demon Slayer Edge sprang back into the air, circling back ruthlessly as it attempted to repay ASA's life as well. However, ASA was still an experienced mercenary. After that first shriek, he kept his mouth shut even in the midst of such horrifying circumstances. He didn't hesitate. In a situation where he might lose his life in the next second, his empty left hand swiftly picked up his severed right hand as he deployed the levitation spell without pause. He took to the skies and a circle of lightning formed around him, turning him into an electric man. The Demon Slayer Edge once again flew towards ASA as the electric currents sparked madly. When the Demon Slayer Edge closed in on his back, the electric currents invaded it, interrupting its charge and stopping it a hair's breadth away from ASA's body. At that moment, a series of crackles and pops resounded from his body. The electric net that surrounded ASA poured into the Demon Slayer Edge with fierce electric power. This threw the magical yuan that Han Shao had infused into the Demon Slayer Edge into disarray. With that, it didn't take ASA's life. Although ASA hadn't been stabbed to death, the wildly rampant magical yuan within the Demon Slayer Edge crashed into him like an enormous boulder. His body trembled like a kite with a broken string almost plummeting from the sky with his violent swaying. He finally caught himself with a stumble and shakily flew into a room crying for help. "Let's go. ASA's injured even worse than Florida now. I think it's becoming more and more unrealistic that the Rainbow Sickles will be able to win out over the Kyra mercenary band in this time's struggle." Han Shao laughed coldly and walked out of an alleyway with Gilbert and Trunks. "Devious master, why not take this advantage to kill him? We just need to stick him again and ASA will be dead without a doubt." Uncomprehending, Gilbert looked at Han Shao in confusion. ASA fell into a rest stop of the Kyra mercenary band. Even though the Kyra mercenary band and the Rainbow Sickles are covertly fighting each other, everyone within the valley is under the protection of the Kyra mercenary band. No matter whether the mercenaries want to or not, they'll have to raise a hand to help ASA. "We can't kill ASA there or we'll offend Lord," Trunks explained to Gilbert. "Yep, when I ambushed ASA, the Kyra mercenaries didn't say a word and no one came out of their rest stop to help him. This is already helping us out. You stupid dragon should use your brain more and not just think of dirty things from day to night," Han Shao lectured Gilbert in an exasperated tone. "It's a pity that Maxine escaped. That woman has a very finely honed sense of danger." Trunks spoke with some regret. Nodding, Han Shao agreed. It was indeed a bit of a pity that Maxine escaped. Perhaps it's because she's adept as she is in assassination that her senses are so keen. The woman hiding in the shadows is much more dangerous than ASA. You must be careful and not give her any openings." The three of them chatted as they made their way back to the shop. With the three demons around him, no one and nothing could escape Han Shao's observation, so they didn't run into any further trouble. There were some exotic flowers and grass placed in front of an orc's shop, as well as some exquisitely knotted small trees. One of them had 3 golden glittering leaves and milky white stalks. They were as durable as stalactites and shone with a faint white luster, immediately catching Han Shao's attention. He'd observed this shop through the yin demons. He spoke to the other two. "Come, let's take a look at the shop." Having long since grown used to Han Shao's peculiarities, the two of them didn't say anything and followed behind Han Shao, walking towards the orc's shop. Several uncommon flora and fauna attracted Han Shao's attentions. Some of them had refreshing scents and others had bizarre shapes with vivid colors. Many of the small trees had translucent roots like a beautiful jade. It was a wonder how they'd grown. Han Shao drew nearer to the 3 golden leaves and leaned over to sniff them. A clean scent drifted into his nose and mouth, refreshing his mind. Han Shao stared at those 3 leaves, examining them closely for a bit. He reached out and rubbed the rock-like roots, thinking of something with a furrowed brow. Gilbert and Trunks were staring at Han Sha-o with a peculiar expression. They didn't understand his actions at all and didn't know why he was suddenly interested in such bizarre flora and fauna. After a while Han Sha-o's eyebrows suddenly twitched as a crazed delight filled his eyes. He observed all of the strange plants even more closely afterwards, his whole being filled with an unspeakable excitement, like he'd suddenly picked up some treasures. Gilbert and Trunks looked at each other, unsure of what Han Sha-o had discovered. They stood there and watched his strange performance, completely befuddled. Sweeping his eyes over the wares in front of the door, Han Sha-o took in a deep breath and said to Gilbert and Trunks, "I need these special plants. Come, let's see if there are other gains inside." His excited expression slowly returned to normal after his words as he walked inside. Chapter 225. A heavenly treasure. The shopkeeper was an old yet tall and strong orc. Even in the heart of cruel winter he just had on a thin shirt. Thick hair covered his coarse skin as he lazily rested in his shop. There were many exotic plants everywhere in the shop. These strange flowers and grasses came in vivid colors and the shop was filled with a refreshing scent. Han Sha-o only flicked a slight glance at the old orc as he walked in and started looking amongst the plant life himself, identifying them and looking for what he needed. In Chu Kang Len's memories he'd spent a lot of time researching the methods of pill refinement. He'd also refined some pills himself. However, apart from a pill cauldron and a recipe being of the utmost importance in pill refining, the next most important thing were the ingredients. The more precious the pill, the rarer the ingredients. Most of them were heavenly treasures and one needed them in sufficient quantity to refine the pills. This time the leaves glittering with a golden color in front of the old orc's shop with roots like rock had attracted Han Sha-o's attention. Using the methods in his memories he began to closely examine the fauna in order to identify them. After careful scrutiny he was able to confirm that these strange plants were the ones that only grew in caves with stalactites. These were goldmo grass that had formed after absorbing the rock essence within the caves for 100 years, as well as the yin chi of the heavens. Goldmo grass was a heavenly treasure of great yin. If combined with a couple of other ingredients, one would be able to refine the transformative reform pill. A pill that would thoroughly excavate all of a mortal's bones and meridians, completely transforming their body to make it suitable for demonic and magical cultivation. There was also a small ruby-colored tree with several red fruits on its branches. The flaming fruits were round and translucent, sparkling with a faint crimson light beneath the sunlight. They each seemed to be like a miniature sun. When Han Sha-o looked at them closely he grew even more certain that these were the fire attribute treasures, sunblaze fruits. If someone cultivating the fire attribute ate this fruit, then their strength would increase immensely for a short amount of time thanks to the power of the sun filtering down to them. However, if someone not inclined towards the fire attribute ate the fruit, they wouldn't be able to hold up under the fiery power within and would be burned to a crisp by the fruit. When he turned to cinders, the spirit power of the fruit would slowly dissipate into the skies. Apart from the goldmo grass and the sunblaze fruit, Han Sha-o also discovered other treasures such as the dragonfly fruit, 100-year vine heart and extreme frost grass in this shop. These were all precious materials that pill refiners needed. Han Sha-o naturally wouldn't let them easily out of his sight now that he discovered them. After a while Han Sha-o laid out all the exotic spirit plants he knew on the counter in front of the old orc. He smiled. "Elder, how much do these go for?" The old orc had been long since keeping an eye on Han Sha-o's movements as he lazily sat there. He finally stood up when Han Sha-o placed these items in front of him. Contrary to Han Sha-o's expectation, the stocky old orc didn't immediately name a price. He looked at Han Sha-o with interest instead and asked, "Do you recognize these items and know what they're used for?" The old orc's voice was raspy and resonant, seemingly a bit awkward when he formed the syllables of human speech. His two nostrils puffed with air as he spoke, looking a bit odd. "No, I just think they're a bit strange and wanted to take them home for some further study." Han Sha-o smiled. The old orc was a bit disappointed when he heard that Han Sha-o didn't recognize them. He muttered self-deprecatingly to himself, "Of course, so many pharmacists had no idea what this is. How would you know what they are?" Pointing at the sunblaze fruit, the old orc said to Han Sha-o, "Curious human youngster, these things aren't fun at all. They grew out of an area of poor dirt in our home and no one dares play with them, For instance, this red fruit, even if some fierce beasts eat these fruits, they'd be burned to death by poisonous flame. And these strange flowering grasses, you'll be able to feel a bone-deep chill if you place your hand on their leaves. Whoever eats them freezes into ice cubes. You're not a pharmacist, so you should probably not try to mix them up. According to what I know, some pharmacists suffered great harm when they tried mixing these. It was obvious that the old orc didn't know the marvelous effects of these heavenly treasures and treated them as scary poisonous grass. The sunblaze fruit and extreme frost grass were treasures of utmost heat and cold. Ordinary people would indeed be injured if they ate them, since they couldn't digest the spirit power within. It was normal for him to have this kind of misconception. Laughing lightly, Han-Shao smiled. Don't worry, I'm not using these myself. It's just that I know a good pharmacist who's good with exotic plants. I just want to give these to him. Of course I'll remember your reminders and tell him the peculiarities of these plants. Then all right. It was very difficult for my children to bring them over from the far barren wastelands. Give me 100 gold coins for all of these. This is a fair price. Some pharmacists would be greatly interested in them and be willing to spend a great deal of money to buy them. It was obvious that the old orc didn't know what these items could be used for in the hands of someone like Han-Shao. 100 gold coins wasn't even enough to buy one of their leaves. In consideration of the orc's kind reminders as well as the possibility of obtaining more of these plants in the future, Han-Shao generously threw down 500 gold coins. Thank you for your reminder, Elder. Your kindness was worth 400 gold coins. Otherwise my friend might have ended up in trouble. If you have more of these plants, please bring them from the barren lands. I'll come over when I'm free and purchase them for high prices. Oh honored guest, your generosity will be rewarded. Thank you. The old orc emotionally accepted a bag of 500 gold coins. His gaze at Han-Shao was quite different as he spoke happily. Wait a second. A clear shout suddenly came from outside the door as a beautiful girl, one that made all three guys sigh, sashayed in. She had a tall and slender body that was covered by a light purple dress. Her brown hair flowed like a waterfall as a pair of limpid eyes lay gently beneath her delicately arched brows. She had a charming nose and small red lips that dotted her face. Her flawless tender skin and oval-shaped face rounded out all the elements that a beauty should have. She looked only in her early 20s but had the air of one used to holding power and having weathered many a disaster. Although she wasn't purposefully revealing it, she had a natural gravitas to her bearing, as if she could easily decide someone's life or death. Hi beauty, talking to me? Gilbert blew a sharp whistle and looked at the lady with excitement as he flirted with her. Not you. She flicked a glance at Gilbert and responded calmly without looking at him again. She walked toward Han-Shao and raised a slender finger to point at the extreme frost grass. Her limpid eyes looked at Han-Shao as she said, can you sell that poison grass to me? Shaking his head, Han-Shao smiled. I'm sorry, no. The beauty looked askance at Han-Shao after hearing his rejection. She hadn't thought that Han-Shao would reject her so decisively. Her pretty brows knit together as she asked again, I can pay 100 gold coins just for this blade of grass. He shook his head again and confirmed, I'm sorry, not selling. Having met with rejection twice, she knew that there was no chance she would be able to obtain the grass. She looked meaningfully at Han-Shao and said with disdain, a man with no chivalry. It looks like Emily's words weren't that true. It was Han-Shao's turn to be surprised after hearing those words. Are you Mistress Cecilia? Nodding her head coldly, Cecilia threw her head back and looked at Han-Shao, speaking proudly, that's me. Mr. Brian, what will it take for you to give me the grass? Nothing. Han-Shao responded and smiled. It's very nice to meet you, Mistress Cecilia. Good day. Han-Shao didn't even look at Cecilia after he finished speaking, circling past her to unhurriedly walk outside the shop.